Level up your LA Kings experience with Vivid Seats Elite Seats. All the on-ice Kings action with even more exclusive access and rewards. Enjoy great seats to the game in Section 103 along with Yamava Club access and parking included with your purchase. Plus, get a free Team LA Kings shop item at the game. Score your Vivid Seats Elite Seats tickets today and earn perks on each purchase from the only leading ticket company with a rewards program. Experience it live with Vivid Seats, the official partner of the LA Kings. Did you know the LA Kings have their own culinary partner? It's Superfood, celebrating 10 years and over 1 million meals served. Since 2020, the Kings have trusted Superfood to fuel their players. Now through Simply Lunch, you can bring that same performance-driven food to your office. Because when people eat better, they work better. Visit mysuperfood.com. That's mysuperfd.com. Or call 213-973-6145. Qualified companies can enjoy a free lunch for up to 10 managers.
Is with the face-off, long shot, Doughty save, rebound LaFerriere, another chance, this time for Perry, swings it in front, hits LaFerriere, tries to turn it in front, they score! Low slot Adrian Kempe.
You're listening to All the Kings Men, the official podcast of the LA Kings.
LaFerriere collects tape-to-tape right wing, swings it wide of the goal, kicks around to Kempe left point, he will smack it deep. Ristolainen comes it off for Philly, but loses the puck up top. Kempe shoots and scores! Kempe from Perry. What a setup! And a quick shot from number 9. It's quickly 2-0.
Now, here's your host, Jesse Cohen.
It's Monday morning. That means it's time to crown a King of the Week. And joining me this week to help me out is John Hoven, a.k.a. the Mayor. How you doing today, John?
I'm doing fabulous, a.k.a. great.
Well, good to hear. There were a lot of games this week, and yet there was still one less than there was meant to be. It was meant to be 5 games, which is part of the reason I wanted you to be the one to do it, come and help me this week. It was a full docket of games, but one
felt
of them
like 8 games.
I know, and they went 3-1-1, and yet somehow I didn't feel 3-1-1 about the week. But it's neither here nor there.
How does 3-1-1 feel?
Well, great. Beyond reproach. 3-1-1 on a trip feels like, chef's kiss. And this one I'm like, yeah, okay, that was good. I mean, now it helps that the last game ended the way it did on Sunday, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
You have some overtime in there, which also I think probably takes some of it away, right? It wasn't like 3 100%. Dominant wins.
No, and so the games we're dealing with are the Detroit, Buffalo, Philly, and Carolina games. We're leaving the St. Louis game out of it. So it's 2-1-1, but the Detroit win was dominant. The Buffalo loss was dominant, and the Philadelphia win, they gave up a 2-goal lead. So
again,
yes, again, correct. So anyway, we're going to start off. You know the drill. The listeners know the drill. So we're going to start off with your honorable mention this week.
Well, Jesse, if nothing else, I'm consistent. So there's a part of you that should have been able to predict this. The honorable mention in terms of King of the Week this week goes to a player who never actually even played in a game, which is, I wish you could see Jesse's eye roll because he knew it was coming. The honorable mention.
I think you'd do it.
Of course I'm going to do it. The honorable mention goes to, of course, Kenny Edward Connors. Now, yeah. Kenny Connors.
I didn't realize we were on a middle name basis with him already.
Well, I mean, I don't know who the we is, but yeah. Look, Kenny Connors was, you could call it scheduled, thought to have made his debut, planned on, use whatever word you want. Obviously, some people were very upset about it. Others wanted to know.
I'm one of those people.
Okay, and others. I love how others asked me, like, well, what happened? Why did it not happen? Look, guys, I'm not Jim Hiller. I don't make the decisions. I'm also not the general manager of the team. I only play one on TV. I don't know. And I don't think anybody will ever know, even if you ask Ken Holland or Jim Hiller why. Plans change. That's just the the nature of the National Hockey League. Certainly there were a lot of people that were expecting it, including friends and family that were in attendance, and he did get to take warm-ups. That's great. But look, honorable mention to the kid, and there's nothing bad about the fact that he didn't. It would have been a great story had he done it, but let's be real, Jesse. These are professional hockey players, and they suit up and they play when called upon, and they're not always called upon. Sometimes they are a healthy scratch, and you're making $10 times the amount of money playing in the National Hockey League compared to playing in the American League for the most part. So this is a guy who was, making probably 85 grand in the American League and is going to make 850, prorated, of course. But you're talking a difference of $400 a day or $4,000 a day. So I'm sure Connors is not too bummed about it because his paycheck is going to be much better here for the week that he was called up. But yeah, it would have been nice. It really, really would have been nice. But things change.
All right. Well, I'm not going to get too deep into it on this platform because I've gotten deeper into it on different platforms. The people I'm upset on the behalf of are not Kenny Connors. It's Kenny Connors' friends and family who live in Philadelphia.
You're upset with them?
No, I'm upset on their behalf.
On their behalf. Oh,
Kenny Connors will be fine. Kenny Connors
be fine.
will get another chance. He's 22 years old. Presumably he'll have plenty of opportunities. He'll have a first game in the NHL. If your predictions are correct, he'll have many goals in the NHL and he'll be perfectly fine.
I would like to jump in real quickly, though, and say that it's important that people understand who Kenny Connors is versus who he isn't, because this is not a guy who's going to score 50 goals in the NHL.
No.
And outside of, I bring this up only because there are many fans that when they hear about prospects and they hear about, this is their number one ranked prospect, or this guy's having a great rookie season. There are 12 different forward spots in the lineup most nights, unless you're playing 11 and 7. But the point is that they play different roles. And Kenny Connors, let's be clear who he is. He's a bottom six center. And I know guys like Mark Yannetti and Mike Donnelly, even Nelson Emerson will say you never want to really put a ceiling on a guy. And that's true because Laffey has ended up playing higher up the lineup than probably most people projected. So
yes, I did not have Alex Laferriere as number one center.
Okay. So my point is I don't want to put a governor on Kenny Connors, and he might ultimately work his way into more minutes and a higher role up the lineup, but I would have him penciled in most likely as a third or fourth line center in the NHL. It's a very important role. Any starting player in the lineup is important and is going to give you good minutes. So I'm just letting everybody know he's not a 50-goal scorer, but he is arguably been the best player along with Andre Lee for the Ontario Reign this year. And that says a lot when you're talking about a rookie playing in a man's league. The AHL is not, it's not junior hockey. This is a professional. It's the second best league in the world. And this kid has come in and just done an outstanding job. And I don't want to put words in Andrew Lord's mouth, but he's a liar if he says that Kenny Connors is not his favorite player this season. So the organization loves the kid, and he's going to be great. So I'm looking forward to him making his NHL debut.
All right. Well, bold move to start us off with a guy that was on the roster but didn't appear in a game. But all right, Kenny Connors,
that's how we do it, Jess. Who's your honorable mention?
My honorable mention's Drew Doughty.
Okay.
And part of it is because I saw a version of Drew Doughty that I wasn't sure we would ever see again. Just because of his age. No disrespect to Drew Doughty, but the scorpion save he made in the game against Carolina, the diving play he made, was it against Buffalo? I don't even remember, where he, laid out on his stomach and prevented the centering pass. Like, we're seeing Drew Doughty put his body in the way of the puck and not give up on plays in ways that we haven't seen in a while. And more importantly, after a stretch of games where I believe he went pointless and was like a -12. In these 4 games, he had 1 assist and was a +4. He led the team in plus-minus over the 4 games this week. And, all while, of course, playing the most minutes of anybody on the team, et cetera, et cetera. And if this team is to have any success, sorry to lean on the cliche, its best players got to be its best players. And having a player like Drew Doughty who can tap into that version of himself is going to be crucially important. And it's just really nice to see. And I suspect it probably went a long way.
I'm wondering if somebody pointed out to him that in the first half of the season, he wasn't blocking shots and getting in front of pucks the same way that he was earlier, because there seems to be a renewed commitment toward that part of the game. I'm just curious if he figured it out, if he was watching tape, if somebody pointed it out to him. I don't know. It's just a little thought I had a couple days ago.
My hunch would be somebody pointed out how bad he'd looked in the 10 games following being named to the Olympic team. Mm-hmm. Or who knows? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's just the natural way of things. You get a reward that you've been working towards, and then you take your foot off the gas for a half a second. But in those 10 games, which was the Tampa Bay Lightning, both Minnesota games, San Jose, Winnipeg, Edmonton, Dallas, Vegas, and both Ducks games, I'm pretty sure that was the stretch where he went 0 points and minus 12 or whatever it was, which is not great. But since then, the team has rebounded, and they've rebounded around him. And like I said, I just think it probably matters and probably shows up in ways that we would never know. So my honorable mention is Drew Doughty. That then brings us to your runner-up.
I wrestled with the runner-up, and I'm going to go. I don't think this is your runner-up. I love to guess yours, and I'm going to guess that yours is probably Quentin Byfield.
Nope.
And I'm going to give you. What's that?
I said you guessed wrong.
All right. Well, that's the beauty of us.
Yeah.
Being friends for 20 years and knowing each other as long as we have. We think we know the other one well, and we sometimes don't.
Right.
But I'm going to go with Sammy Helenius as the runner-up for the week. I think he had a pretty good week. Sammy, of course, obviously picked up a goal, but he picked up some penalty minutes along the way and has played with some youthless, aggressive aggression, this week. And
I think you mean youthful aggression, by the way.
What did I say? Youthless?
Youthless, which I didn't quite understand what you meant, but I think
I'm just youthful. Making up words at this point.
Sure.
Yes, some youthful aggressiveness, and obviously he's been in a very important part of that line that Jim Hiller has leaned on, which has been nice to see. Of course, talking about the Malott, Helenius, and Ward line. I was surprised that by the time we got to the weekend that they were still together, just because there were some difficult decisions to be made, and to see that line still playing and a guy like Warren Fogle being scratched again, etc., just was a bit surprising. Not that they hadn't earned it, just you always try to get inside the mind of Jim Hiller or any NHL head coach and figure out what their next move is going to be. I was a little bit surprised to see how it all ended, but I will give my runner-up position this week to Big Sam.
So he was somebody that I considered trying to find a spot for in the rankings. I wound up not picking him, but and if I could correct you, by the way, he had 2 goals, not just one.
I meant 1 goal in the most recent game. But yes.
But here's a question I have about Helenius, and it started to occur to me, I don't remember how long ago, but it's a relatively recent thought. And I'm going to start digging into it to see if there can't be an answer. And I don't know if you'll agree with me or not. It was actually your observation that got me thinking about this first, which was that he seems to play better with Andre Lee.
Oh, absolutely.
I think he plays better with bigger line mates in general. Whether it's Malott, who's huge, Ward is not huge, but he's not small.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw it on the goal he scored against Carolina today. Taylor Ward was available far side of the goal in case there was now Ward didn't actually pull any defenders to him when he crashed the net. But I just wonder, is there something about larger line mates where bigger players have more gravity, to torture a metaphor, than smaller players? And so they bring defenders closer to them with their size, and perhaps that gives their bigger line mates more room to operate, because Helenius's confidence even seems to grow when his line mates do. Like the shot he ripped against Carolina. Well, okay, why is what does he have 6 goals? 6 goals in his career. Why doesn't he do that all the time if he's got that in his arsenal? Where's that?
He has been pigeonholed a little bit more since coming to North America, as a PK guy, rather than getting some of those offensive opportunities that he did when he was younger with Team Finland and things like that. But since you were kind of digging in a little bit deeper, I will give a little bit of credit to Taylor Ward as well here, because, that line was Andre Lee, the line in Ontario, that was the best line for about 2 or 3 months there leading into the playoffs. Marco Sturm credited them with being the best line. Even Jim Hiller, Rob Blake, who was the general manager. I mean, the whole organization talked about the importance of that line. And that line was Lee, Helenius, and Ward. And there's been a lot of talk, especially from me, about Lee and Helenius, but not so much about Taylor Ward. And obviously, Helenius is comfortable, playing with him, to your point. And Malott is an interesting replacement, if you will, or sub on that line for Andre Lee. I still think Andre Lee is an NHL player and should be should be up, but I know that, there has to be a spot for him. There's no point in keeping him up and playing him in the press box. And as long as you're going to play Jeff Malott, then there's not a spot for Andre Lee. But I do continue to like Andre Lee and Sammy Helenius for not just their size purposes, but I think their games complement each other in that Lee has what Helenius doesn't, and Helenius has what Lee doesn't. And so they fit together in this yin and yang sort of way. But that's my take on that line.
Well, like I said, I strongly considered Sammy Helenius because that line has been really entertaining. And part of the way I know I'm onto something with the height issue is I think it was last season. I think you're going to have to help jog my memory. Didn't they have Lee and Helenius on a line with somebody else incredibly tall? Didn't the Kings have like the tallest line in the league at one point? I don't remember.
Now that you mention it, I think that was a thing. Who was that other person?
I don't remember. It might have been Malott. I don't know.
It wasn't Jeannot.
Maybe it was Jeannot. Well, it might have been because Jeannot's what, 6'2" or something. Anyway, the reason I bring it up is I remember asking in a media availability, like, hey, you've got this bottom six line and they're the biggest guys in the league and they seem to be working. Is that part of the strategy to like get big players? And I was made fun of by multiple people. And I was like, oh, come on. That's how I knew I was onto something. I was like, listen, I get it. It's fairly obvious, but sometimes the fairly obvious stuff needs to be pointed out. So we'll see. My
hold on. Let me ask you a question here too, because somebody asked me the other day why I always call Frankie Pinelli Frankie and not Francisco, my comment
way off board here, but
no, not really, because it's going to circle back to Sammy. And my comment really was there are just certain players that's what everybody calls them, and it's not always like I don't mean it in a hockey nickname sort of way, right? Nobody calls him that. Everybody calls him Frankie. It's Frankie Pinelli. It's always been the same thing with Sammy too. Nobody has ever called him Samuel Helenius that I've been around. That's fair. Coaches, scouts, whatever in the organization, everyone's always referred to him as Sammy. I'm just curious, are you the same way? Do you I know you're big on calling guys by the correct pronunciation and all of that sort of thing. But you called him Sammy Helenius. So now I'm wondering, have you ever referred to him as Samuel Helenius?
I think it probably depends on the setting. If I was speaking to him, I don't think I'd ever say like, oh, Samuel, good game out there. I would probably just say Sammy.
But there is somebody that you do, Yoel Armia. You wanted to make sure to call him Yoel,
because that's his name.
But he told you to call him Joel. So
no, he didn't.
Wait, yes, he did. He said
no, he did not.
You asked him a question.
He said Joel is fine. That's a far cry from I prefer Joel.
He didn't say I prefer one way or the other. You asked him what he preferred. And I
said, how do you pronounce your name?
Okay,
and
I'm sorry.
He said Joel is fine, and I said that's not what I asked. I said, how does your family pronounce your name? And he said Yoel, and I said, okay, I'm going to call you Yoel. Nice to meet you, Yoel. I'm Jesse, and he said, hi, I'm Joel.
Hi, I'm Joel. Right, it's such a who's on first moment.
Here's
fantastic.
The thing: if somebody asked me if it was okay to call me Jesse, 99 times out of 100, I'm going to be like, yeah, whatever, that's fine. Especially if I've moved to a country where language, where English.
I am now calling you Jesse from now on. That is your new name.
You won't know this story, but as we've touched on here, famously, I don't like nicknames. And I was having a conversation with Hoover, the producer director of the Kings television.
That everybody calls Hoover, by the way. Everybody.
And I very proudly told him, like, I don't think I call anybody by their nickname. And he looked at me and he went, except for me. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, you call me Hoover. And I was like, oh, yeah, your name is Steve.
Yeah. Do you call him Steve, a.k.a. Hoover?
No, he's in my phone as Hoover. I've only ever called him Hoover. And I think part of it is that when I was introduced to him, it was years before I realized his name wasn't actually Hoover.
Oh, 100%.
But I think he's the exception that proves the rule. I don't like nicknames. But anyway, no, I call Sam Helenius Sammy.
Am I in your phone as John or Mayor?
I think you're just in as Hoven, honestly. Let me see. No, you're in as the Mayor, funnily enough.
There you go. All right. I'm on the same level as Hoover. I'm so happy right now.
Yeah. Actually, you're in as John Hoven, but the nickname is the Mayor, and then it defaults to the nickname. So when you text me, it says the Mayor. Anyway.
I'm changing yours to Jesse as soon as this call is over.
So my runner-up is Anton Forsberg.
Okay.
Like I said, there were a number of players I considered including in my rundown, but Anton Forsberg went 1-0-1 in this week, and the 0-1, the overtime loss to Carolina, the team did not play very well through the first 45 minutes of the game. And if ever there was a moment where you go, oh, okay, the goalie kept them in it long enough for them to fight back, ordinarily that's a thing where you can kind of roll your eyes. Like, there have been games where at the end of the game, the broadcasters will say, oh, remember that save? The goalie kept them in, made that save to keep it within 2. And you're like, keep it within 2? What are you talking about? But this game, it was only 2-0 very late in the game. And it was 2-1 almost instantly afterwards. And Forsberg has come in, and Forsberg numbers since, I think I looked it up today, from December 15th on or January 1st on, whatever it is, Forsberg's been incredible.
Those are two important different dates there, because really I think what most people are looking at is how he's performed since we'll call it decline. I can't think of a better word.
Well, it's since
Kemper
went out.
Stuff. Yeah.
That was the December 15th or 16th, whatever it was. But he's been great. And this particular week, it's an incredibly small sample size, but 1-0-1, 935 save percentage, 1.98 goals against. He really did the job, and good for him.
How important is he, do you think, as you go forward? There's kind of two things to wrestle with here, right? One is getting Darcy Kemper potentially the proper amount of rest, whether that be from injuries or just usage with the compacted schedule. I think somebody said the other day that there are more games in the month of January than any other month in NHL history, or maybe it's just any other January, because of the schedule being so compacted. So my point, though, is that there would be multiple reasons that Forsberg could be important down the stretch, one being just the normal rest that you would want to give Kemper because of the injuries and or the usage with the compacted schedule. But number two, you have the Olympics, and nobody really knows the answer to this question definitively, and that is, how many games is Kemper going to get? How much is he going to be used at the Olympics? It could be very little. It could be a lot. Nobody knows for sure, and that is, I think, generally considered to be Team Canada's weakness when compared to most of the other big nations. So they're going to have to sort of sort that out once they get there, and maybe somebody gets hot, who knows? But that his usage could also impact the amount that you need to lean into Forsberg coming out of the Olympic break. So that just, what are you thinking about that looking ahead?
I think there's something you haven't touched on yet that I think is a symptom of what you're talking about, which is just a preposterous amount of back-to-back games on this year's schedule.
Well, it's the compacted schedule, yeah.
Just an absurd amount. I was looking at the rest of the schedule today, and my jaw just about fell off my head. It's like 4 or 5 at least. And one of them, and one that's not even on, or maybe it is on the schedule now, because the Columbus game got postponed and moved into March, but moved into a back-to-back situation. So
yeah,
it's just crazy. And I would flip the question on you and say, in the last 4 years of this playoff version of this team, has there been a backup goalie that you trust more than Anton Forsberg on the second night of a back-to-back?
No, and the performance on the second night has been so impressive. I don't know what the current stat is. I don't have it in front of me, but for the most part this year, they've been better on the second night than they are on the first night, which, of course, that it just has to work out that way because it's been a wacky season. So
yes.
why wouldn't that stat
Why
be true?
wouldn't it? Yeah, exactly. Why wouldn't it be totally backwards?
Yeah.
So anyway, Anton Forsberg's my runner-up because, like I said, I thought he came in, did his job, and did it real well. That brings us then to your king of the week.
Well, if we don't agree on this one, Jesse, and I like it when we don't agree, but if we don't agree on this one,
I suspect we will.
I am really going to be perplexed and look forward to your argument if you pick somebody other than Adrian Kempe, because he has been the Kings player of the week, player of the year. You probably have to include Kevin Fiala in the conversation, but Adrian Kempe has just been that damn good this week and this year and, the last couple of years, for that matter. So Adrian Kempe had a phenomenal week, and it seemed like when the Kings really needed goals on this road trip, Adrian Kempe rose to the occasion. And let's also, Jesse, not miss the point that he's changed line mates a few times
Mhm.
over the course of this road trip as well, as they've sort of, they had to shake things up due to injury, and then Kopitar returned, and they surprisingly moved him away from. I think I said Kempe returned. Kopitar returned, and they surprisingly moved him away from number 11. So, he's been doing it in sort of outside of his usual comfort zone, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah, Ken, first of all, just to ruin the surprises, Adrian Kempe is my king of the week.
Oh, Jesse,
And
agree.
in the official, unofficial king of the week standings, he remains atop the list. He's got 47 king of the week points, and Brant Clark is right behind him with 39. So that shows you how far ahead he is.
And what does the winner get for the most? Do they get a box of donuts, or what do they get?
They get put into a file on my computer and never thought about again.
Who earned the most king of the week points last season? Do you know?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. If you give me 5 minutes, I could go look it up. But
I promise everybody we did not work on this bit.
I'm
beforehand.
definitely not going to look it up. But I'm pretty sure it was
organic.
Adrian Kempe last year.
Oh, okay.
But here's the most fascinating thing for me about Adrian Kempe, and I'll have to go back and look at this because it didn't occur to me until halfway through the third period today in Carolina. There was a brief period earlier this season, maybe about a month ago, where Quentin Byfield had been taking on the role of being matched up against the opposition's top scoring players.
The Phil Deneau role.
Yes, it was McDavid in Edmonton, McKinnon against Colorado, Kucherov against Tampa, like just down the list. Carlson in Anaheim. Yeah, yep. Just like bing, 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 bing. Every night, Byfield took those minutes. Today, and I didn't look at yesterday, but today, it was the Laferriere, Kempe, and Perry line going out against Svechnikov and Aho. And that is so fascinating because now it was a 4 forward, 1 defenseman situation that got the tying goal with Kempe setting up Byfield, but nonetheless, Kempe was out there and got the point. But if that is going to be a thing moving forward, if Kempe and Laferriere are going to team up to be some kind of shutdown tandem,
that's a head scratcher if that's a tandem. I mean,
I agree.
Kempe's your lethal scoring weapon. He's not your...
I agree, but who am I to argue with results? The man has
100%.
He's got 6 points in 4 games, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points at +3, and shutting down the other team's best players. I turned my nose up and openly mocked the concept of Alex Laferriere as a center. I am already in the process of potentially walking that attitude back.
Really?
I may have been like I said. Who am I to argue with results? It seems to be working.
Jesse, I'm going to have to delete the thousands of texts that you sent me voicing your displeasure with that.
Listen,
decision.
For everybody's attitude about me as being someone who never admits he's wrong, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm perfectly happy to be proven wrong. And Alex Laferriere, minus the face-off part, seems to be doing a real good job at playing center between Perry and Kempe. And this is not about the King of the Week, but it's just a question I'll throw your way. With the fourth line kind of stabilizing, and with Kopitar now back in the lineup, we don't know what's going on with Turcotte or when he'll be back. Fogel's been a healthy scratch 2 games in a row now. All of a sudden, the forward lines, Laferriere is a center, Perry and Kempe and Laferriere are a shutdown line. Like
that line just makes no sense to me.
I agree, but like I said, who am I to argue with results?
Of course.
But the question then becomes, if you had asked me about trade deadline stuff 3 weeks ago, a month ago, 2 months ago, I would have had a pretty strong opinion based on what I thought I knew was the path forward on the forward lines. Today, I have no idea, because if Ward, Malott, and Hellenius are going to be your fourth line, and if Perry and Armia are going to be permanent fixtures up the lineup, and if Laferriere is a center, I don't even know who's in the top 9 anymore, which means all of a sudden you may potentially have extra pieces available for trades or moves. I mean, it throws the whole thing further into chaos in this already chaotic season.
Yeah, I know a lot of people think they have it figured out, and Twitter has it all figured out.
Sure.
The media also, I mean, let's be real here, guys. there are a lot of people that are just taking stabs in the dark in terms of who the Kings are being linked to, because the Kings need offense. And so
Well,
if there's
I'm going to interrupt you real quick here. My favorite was the tweet the other day that listed literally 14 teams as being in on Artemi Panarin. And I was like, cool, add the New York Rangers, who he's coming from, and that's 15 teams now involved in this rumor, which is literally almost half the league. I was like,
well,
good journalism there, guys.
Yeah, people keep asking, are they interested in this player? Are they interested in that player? Yes, the reason that people are tweeting or writing articles saying that there's a rumor or that they think or they speculate about, the Kings being linked to any player who can score goals, the Kings are going to be interested in because they need more goals. That's pretty obvious just looking at the standings and looking at the, where the Kings rank in terms of NHL offense. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a valid rumor. Even if they've checked in on certain guys, it doesn't mean that they have the assets. That's really where I was going, is that, Jesse, the Kings have a limited number of assets to trade. So people say, oh, well, Vegas has done it. This team's done it. Yeah, well, other teams are in different positions because other teams might have more of something, or even better, they might have the specific thing that somebody needs. So the Kings have one young, really potential NHL center, putting Laffy to the side, and that would be Quentin Byfield. So they don't have another one that's in junior or college or somewhere else that could be a number one center. So sometimes teams are willing to trade a 23-year-old future number one center for a 28-year-old current NHL center, right? And so the team that's giving up that center is getting one in return. The Kings don't have that. And so they have limited assets in what's available in a trade. You can include Greentree in that. You can include one of the goaltending prospects, and we can debate whether they would be more likely to include Slakinski or George. Part of that really isn't always on the team that's looking to make the trade, like the Kings. Sometimes it's the other team. The other team might have scouted both of those goaltenders, and the Kings might want to trade Hammer, and the other team's like, no, we want George. So you don't always have the option. It's a great option to have when you have two and the other team can pick one. But my point to all of this really is that there are two things in play. There's what do they need now? What do they need this year? And that's really what you're talking about, right? How these current top nine players are configured heading into the playoffs. And then there's next year. Because while you can say they don't necessarily need a center right now, if I'm going with your argument, if you're like, wow, maybe they have the center thing handled for right now. It is only for right now. They are going to need a number one center, or at worst, a number two center for next season, depending where you see Byfield. So to go out and get that player, they're going to need to, unless that player becomes available in free agency, and you can never count on free agency. The Kings thought they had a really good chance to sign Marner. That didn't happen. So you can't count on your center coming via free agency. And if you're going to go the trade route, either now meaning before the Olympic deadline, or in March before the real trade deadline, or in the summer, you have to be careful how you use your assets, because you only have a few assets. So it is very, very interesting. I still do lean more towards getting a center than the offense. But then I circle back, Jesse, and I go, well, hold on. Yeah, they need that center, but man, they need the goal scoring now, because in order to do anything in the playoffs, they're going to need to be able to generate more offense.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm going to lean on one of your favorite crutches, which is I'm not even going to worry about what I think they should do. I'm always trying to think about what I think they will do. And
it's true.
How
is that a crutch, by the way? That's true.
No. I just mean it's a way of disengaging from a specific conversation. So, for example, my preferences on
it still seems passive aggressive.
Well, maybe it is. I don't know. Deal with it. But I'm about to throw myself under the bus, if you'll let me. When I do franchise mode on NHL games, I'm the idiot who drafts. I will go into the free agency mode. I will throw a 1-year, $20 million deal at Alex Ovechkin, or whatever big name free agent is on the market. As soon as I have him signed, I will trade him to some other team for a first round draft pick. And I will go into every year on franchise mode with 8 first round draft picks. And I will just hoard picks and prospects and wait for one of them to hit. and then start building around that one. And what it means is that inevitably I'm 13 seasons into my franchise simulation and my team sucks. And I've burned through a million players and no player will sign with me anymore for more than market value because the game has figured out that I'm just going to trade them anyway. So, I mean, my preference as to what they would do just doesn't matter because I have a very specific approach. But to your point about them needing a goal scorer, I just felt like prior to the shakeup on the forward lines, and this goes back even a month and a half ago, before Phil Deneau got traded, when there was still the possibility of Kopitar, Kuzmenko, Kempe, Fogelmore, Deneau, I'm blanking on the other line now, Byfield, Laferriere, and Fiala, and whatever the fourth line would have looked like. Before that, it was like, oh well, I guess there's no wiggle room, right? Like this is what the team is. But now that we've got two AHL call-ups seemingly untouchable on a line in Malott and Ward, no disrespect to either one of them, but like I would not have predicted 53 games into the season that the fourth line of Hellenius, Malott, and Ward would be the one that isn't going to be changed from night to night.
I'm not there with you yet because yes,
and it could be changed next game, but it hasn't been changed over.
No, it hasn't, and that was my point from earlier, though, is that I'm surprised that it wasn't changed this weekend. Yeah. I still think though that Ward will be back in the American Hockey League soon enough. I can't see that line staying together. I mean, unless you're doing a 2-for-1, because if you acquire another player. Right.
Well, this is where it would be super helpful.
Fogel's going to sit in the press box.
This is where it would be super helpful to be able to ask Ken Holland about it because
you'll have the chance soon.
I mean, knock wood. Because this is the kind of thing where when I asked Jim Hiller just before the road trip, I think about that line, Hellenius, Malott, and Ward. He said, the coaching staff and Holland. He mentioned Holland when I wasn't asking about Holland. But he said, we've talked about it and we've decided that that's the line. And Holland was the only one on record in the offseason as saying that Turcotte would be the fourth line center, whereas Hellenius had done the job at the end of last year. So that was a shock to me where it was like, oh, okay. All of a sudden.
Wouldn't timing be part of that, though? Because that was when Deneau was on the team. And once Deneau was off the team, it was Holland who said Turcotte's going to be the third line center. So
no, 100%. It's all for sure. And listen, once Deneau was off the team, but Hiller said once Deneau was traded before Kopitar got hurt, Hiller said that Hellenius wouldn't be playing a lot of minutes.
He did say that
they were going to go basically 11-6, and it wasn't anything against the way Hellenius had played. It wasn't, a knock on him. They liked that rotation, and suddenly a couple more guys left the lineup, and now all of a sudden we have this line that appears to be untouchable.
Yeah.
And to their credit, they're earning it.
They're getting 10 minutes a night. I mean, and I don't recall, multiple moments where you've been like, oh, geez, what are they doing out there?
No, they play their role and they play it well. And I will add, I think it was against Philadelphia, or maybe it was the game before. But Zach and I interviewed Taylor Ward, so it must have been the Thursday night game, I think, maybe. But there were two instances, or maybe it was after, maybe we talked to him on Friday and it was after the Buffalo game. Doesn't matter. There were two instances in the game where there were post-whistle fisticuffs, not a fight, but just like
scrums.
Yeah. And both times it involved that line.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like clearly not a coincidence. So I'm just going to backtrack real quick and say congratulations, Adrian Kempe, this week's King of the Week. So, yeah, I mean, listen, everybody knows at this point that this season has been weird. It continues to be weird. We're 3 games away now from 2 games away.
2 games, right? Seattle coming up next.
From the Olympic break and the Olympic trade freeze, which will there's 2 trade deadlines coming up.
First one's coming up on Wednesday, the 4th. It'll be just prior to the Kings taking on Seattle. And I think that there'll be some comments from the general manager coming up this week. So you can ask your question and Then there'll be one more game, and then they'll go into the Olympic freeze.
You know what I miss about a pre-internet all-star game weekend?
I have no idea.
When you would get guys that played on the same team together for the first time, whether it was Correa and Solani or Gretzky and Hull, or I'm sure there's other famous examples. And coming out of that weekend, you'd hear rumblings of like, oh, those guys really liked playing together.
Yeah.
keep an eye out for something maybe happening.
Right.
And you had to be extra plugged in, and there was no Twitter to give you like an endless drip of day to day. And Olympic teams, maybe there'll be similar stuff. You know, who knows? Maybe Kempe will play with other Swedes on Team Sweden for 2 weeks. But
yeah, isn't there a guy from Vancouver who
there is
who he's friends with and plays center, and allegedly Jesse is available in the right package to the Vancouver Canucks.
But that was always just a fun little thing where you would go, oh, and honestly, this is going to be goofy, and I don't know if you've watched Heated Rivalry or not, but
I have not.
One of my favorite fascinations with that show is the All-Star games they show in it. And in the show, over the course of the 6 episodes, they go from, in this fake league that only exists in the show, they go from what is very clearly a North America versus the world format in their All-Star game to conference versus conference format in the league. And so the two main characters play for Boston and Montreal. And so in the first All-Star game is depicted their opponents, but in the second All-Star game that's depicted their line mates. And they're essentially the two best players in the league for much of the show. So there's this moment where it's like, oh, Ilya Rozanov and Shane Holland are on a line together. And that's kind of what I miss, is like, oh man, imagine that for one game. And also All-Star games now are this wacky 3-on-3. It's not even a real game. It's just these goofy little tournaments. But yeah, I just miss pre-internet All-Star weekends. What can I say? I'm an old man.
Well, I will let you in on a little secret that actually I've never told you before. And that is that I normally don't take my viewing recommendations from you. However,
you should. I have impeccable taste in television and movies.
I know you think very highly of your TV show recommendations. But what I was going to tell you is I save them. I don't forget them. I save them. And when I'm on an airplane sometime, I then tend to watch them. So, for example, you kept telling me about Ted Lasso for what felt like 3 years. And then I think when I was flying to London, I finally watched like 4 or 5 episodes of Ted Lasso. So the next time I'm on a plane, if Heated Rivalry, you've mentioned it to me all season, probably 10 or 20 times now. So
let me just put this warning out there to anybody thinking about watching Heated Rivalry. It is the opposite of what I think most shows and movies are, in that most shows and movies start out with a bang and fizzle. Heated Rivalry takes forever to get to the point. In my mind. Now, there's a very specific audience for whom Heated Rivalry gets straight to the point.
Doesn't Ted Lasso sort of take forever to get to the point?
First of all, how dare you?
Okay, I'm just
Second of all, no.
What do you think of Shoresy, by the way? We've never talked about that.
Shoresy is hockey culture Seinfeld.
Is that an answer? Does that mean
yes,
you like it or you don't like it?
If I'm in the right mood for it, it's brilliant. But in Seinfeld, there's a whole lot of repetition for humor. So whatever the bit on that episode of Seinfeld is, if it's a coat or a loaf of bread or
they're going to drive it home.
They're just going to bang it as hard as they possibly can. That is, I forget the name of the guy who did Letterkenny and Shoresy, but that is the same thing, right? Like, how many times in an episode of Shoresy will you hear the phrase "bums in seats" or "the boys don't hate to lose"? And it's like, you just, click on the little clicker in your hand, and it's like, all right, I get it. We're at 30 now already. Or like, half the guys on the show are named Jim. If you're in the mood for that, it's great. But
that's
backing up to the point about Heated Rivalry, a lot of shows, like I said, they spool up real fast, and then over time it doesn't go anywhere. Heated Rivalry is 6 episodes long. I thought episodes 5 and 6 were undoubtedly the best episodes and justified what I found to be an incredibly boring watch through episodes 1 through 4. Now, having said that, episodes 1 through 4 are very clearly not for me.
Okay.
And I'm going to rely on everybody's innuendo meter to know exactly what I'm talking about when I say, because I'm assuming you know what the show's about.
Well, I don't know if I know what the show is about. I know what people.
It's
have
a
said the
romance
is about.
show with
Right.
as little romance as possible. In the first 4 episodes of that show, I have seen more romance on late night movies on Cinemax in the 90s when I was a younger man. Like, it's not romantic. It's passionate, but I wouldn't argue romantic. Episodes 5 and 6 are beautiful.
It's more tender and less Match.com. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, that's a very good.
Okay,
now, episodes 5 and 6.
I've never seen the show, so I'm not the person to be commenting.
We can talk about it.
I'm just trying to understand what you're saying.
Episode 5 has a genuinely beautiful scene in it.
Okay.
And episode 6 is incredibly tender and lovely and
okay. Well, don't tell me anymore.
Bravo to the showmakers. I'm just saying you got to sit through episodes 1 through 4 to get to it.
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to tell you the truth about Shorzy. The first episode now, and I love Slapshot, and I know that people think that they're kind of like cousins, right? They're like it's of the similar vein. Slapshot to me is like amazing. I mean, I could sit around and quote that movie all night long with you. I think it's great, no matter
how much of that is nostalgia, though.
I just think it's a great movie. Like, I loved it the first time, and I've loved it ever since. It's like Pulp Fiction to me. It never gets old. If it's on, I want to watch it, right?
All right.
But Shorzy, the first time I watched it, I was like, this is terrible. What is everybody talking about? This is so dumb. Like, I don't know. Maybe I was in a bad mood. I watched the second episode, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And people were like, no, you have to stick with it. It gets better. And, man, after like the 4th episode, I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty good. And then I binged it because I'm always watching it after the fact. I'm not watching the debut episode. So I think Shorzy was probably 3 seasons deep before I ever watched the first episode. So I can't promise you I'm watching Heated Rivalry anytime soon, but I do promise you that I will at some point tune in. You're making me less interested just telling me that I have to keep watching until I get to episode 5. But
I genuinely don't think you would enjoy Heated Rivalry.
Okay, well, so should I not watch it?
Listen, that's between you and your TV gods. I don't think you would enjoy. I don't think it's for you at all in any way, shape, or form. I could be wrong, but
all right.
There are also these little minor details that are totally meaningless, but I find fascinating in that, in the jerseys they wear in the All-Star game.
You told me that they're like they're innuendos in the logos.
No,
right?
That also, yes, but no. More importantly, so on NHL jerseys over the last since the Reebok era, I think they have the NHL logo at the tip of the collar, right? They have a little wedge cut out.
Yes.
On the show, in their regular season jerseys, their designs have a wedge cut out in the collar for their fake league logo. But their All-Star jersey doesn't. The collar is different. It's more I don't know, artistic. It's not functional. They still just slapped a logo on the jersey at about where it should go. But instead of being on a little wedge of fabric, it's just slapped randomly on the front of the jersey.
So it's like a brooch. Like
it's just such a weird. I'm obsessed with it, and I want to talk to the costume designer because it's such an obsessive attention to detail that would matter to absolutely nobody.
All right, I challenge you to track down the costume designer for the show and have them on a future
way
podcast.
Ahead of you.
Oh, okay. Well,
efforts are underway.
Oh, I love it.
It's all I want to talk about because the jerseys, the All-Star jerseys look great. The Olympic jerseys or the international jerseys on Heated Rivalry are 1,000 times better than the actual international jerseys.
You might want to check out the Violent Gentleman jerseys that just dropped this week, by the way. Speaking of international jerseys, compare those to the Olympic jerseys, the Team USA, the Finland.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the Canadian one. Do you have an Olympic prediction before we wrap up today, by the way?
Hey, Team Canada, duh.
Oh, my God. Your dad would be so proud.
Who am I going to pass? Team Canada.
Right.
I will say what I've now, as long as we're way off.
Happy birthday to your dad, by the way. Forgot.
Well, I told him and he appreciated it.
Okay, good.
I am, as in this moment, I will choose to identify as an American.
An American cheering for Canada?
Well, listen, I'm Canadian when it suits me and American when it doesn't. But listen, America has symbols and some great ones.
What do you mean, like a bald eagle? Like, what do you mean? Okay. The iconography associated with
100%.
America
100%.
and USA.
And
Okay, I'm
if
trying
you
to follow
look
you.
at if you look at international jerseys, now I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the maple leaf is a particularly awesome symbol, but it's recognizable within that context. And Canada has the maple leaf, Sweden has the Tre Kronor, Finland has the lion, I think it is. Latvia has their symbol, Czechia has their symbol, Germany has theirs. Like every country has a cool logo on the front of their jersey that is like tied into their national identity and has some history and some pageantry and looks cool. And USA, we're just like USA.
Really?
It's like, come on.
Okay, then you need to definitely check out the jersey. Then I mean, there's not a bald eagle on there, but USA uses the shield, the 1932 Olympic jersey.
Sometimes,
yeah.
More often than not, it's just some dumb script that says
you're
USA.
right. They haven't
font.
used that shield at World Juniors the last couple of years, but they did for a while after. Because the 32 U.S. Olympic jersey is the one that had the shield.
All I'm saying is do a quick Google search of the seal of the President of the United States, the seal of the Supreme Court, the seal of Congress. There's awesome,
I don't want to see the seal of the President of the United States.
No, but give me an
jersey.
eagle holding 13 arrows and a palm leaf or something. I don't know. Give me a little bit of animal fury, right?
The constitutional scroll.
Give me the eagle. Something. Just
Eagle.
USA.
We're not the American Eagles.
Well, the Swedes aren't the crowns. The Finns aren't the lion. I mean, anyway, whatever. I'm going to wrap it up here, John. Thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it as always. Thanks for listening, Kings.